What's up, you beauties? Welcome to High and Wide Hockey, our YouTube channel, episode 26 of season 7. I'm your host, Jim Lycovone, and I'm joined, as always, by Jack Smith. If you're catching us live on YouTube, make sure you smash the subscribe button and help us on our quest to 1,000 subscribers. Make sure you hit that alert so you never miss a show. And for all the podcast listeners out there, don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcast or Spotify so you're first in line when newest episodes drop. And we did see a nice uptick in YouTube and Spotify subscribers this past week. So thank you all for that. Welcome, new subscribers. We're going to try something a little different during tonight's live episode. As you can see, Jack and I are modeling our newest merchandise, our HW Hockey golf hats, perfect for the golfing season. Spring is here. The golf season's around the corner. If we can get 20 new subscribers during today's show, we will give one of these away, maybe even two. We'll give two of these bad boys away at the end of our episode, but we need 20 new subscribers from you guys anyway. Help us get them. We'll take them. We're looking for 1,000 by the end of the season, which is, Jack, now just a few short weeks away. The Flyers are down to a handful of home games left on the season, and thank God, quite frankly.
Yes. The only thing I disagree with you is I think they're going to be long weeks. I don't think it's going to be pretty. Although they are going through a gauntlet right now, I think the schedule is going to lighten up. Hate to be this way, but it is what it is. They're sinking in the standings like a stone in water. Teams underneath them are winning in overtime, like the Penguins and Nashville and Buffalo. Keep winning. Let's get as close to Michael Misa as possible, which at this rate is probably going to have to be the second overall pick in the draft. So you never know. Might as well try. Let's get Misa off some points. Let's get a high draft pick, and let's go from there. Other than that, I don't know what else we're watching for besides some slight development in some players. So it is what it is. If you're surprised this is where the team is, I don't know what you've been watching or if you understand how the trade deadline works, but here we are.
Yeah, you know what? Let's so we can start off with that, I guess, while I bring up some stuff here. So the Flyers, they've traded 5 roster players off their team at the trade deadline. Not all at the trade deadline, but they've lost 5 capable NHL players off the roster in the span of a month. And Morgan Frost, Joel Farabee, Scott Walton, Eric Johnson, and Andrei Kuzmenko. Doesn't matter how you slice it. Kuzmenko is here for a few weeks. Eric Johnson was a 7th defenseman, got meaningful minutes with the team, and can still play. But that's 5 NHL roster players off your team in the span of a month, right? So factor that in. The Flyers also had their longest home stand of the season, and you said it. It was a gauntlet of teams, and no surprise, the Flyers went 1-6. To my surprise, or I guess it shouldn't be a surprise at this point, they won the game, Jack, that you were at.
You have a pretty good record, Jim, this year. I mean, all things considered, I've been to 6 games so far. I'm 4-2. The homestand, which they went 1-6.
Uh-huh.
I was 1-1. I was at the Devils' loss, which I have to say real quick. Met Joe Watson again. Got his book.
Thundercock.
He said, "What'd you call it?"
Sorry, Thundermouth. Sorry, Joey.
I'm dead. I'm dead.
He's packing. I'm just gonna say that.
His
Up
nickname
close.
is definitely Thundermouth.
Yeah.
Signed it for me and everything. My dad's favorite player. We all got a picture. It was nice. But anyway, Flyers lost that one. I believe they got shut out. But yeah, I was there for the Bobby Brink game against Tampa. That was nice. I mean, all things considered, shootout win and a team's looking real bad. You'll take it. So the only thing that didn't happen was Michkov didn't get a point, but he was buzzing.
Yeah, so we're at that point where we're trying to pick out little, the good things in these games. And sure, Bobby Brink stood out. But, combine the loss of 5 roster players and arguably one of the March was going to be hell for this team. We kind of said it a few times on the show back in February, January. March was not going to be a kind month to the Flyers, even before the trades. And so they make these deals. They subtract a lot of players off the team. They don't really add much at all. And they're just getting, cock slapped, if you will.
It's just
Like they're just getting dominated. Like the talent from the other teams is really shining through. They put up valiant efforts against teams like Tampa Bay, and they actually stole a point or two from Tampa Bay and Philly. But factor those in, and the power play still stinks. Goaltending stinks. Flyers aren't a good hockey club. So I'm trying to figure out, Jack, what the hell could Flyers fans be complaining about now? They're bottoming out, right? That's what we all want, right? And like, you're not going to have 30 goal scorers, 40 goal scorers while you're, subtracting talent. Sorry, Brad. That Joe Watson book cover came up, and I kind of do. Yeah, that's a story for another show.
It's the strangest things that send your mind to racing.
I mean, I'll tell that story maybe later on if we run out of things to talk about. So I'm just trying to figure out, because fans are really frustrated on Twitter, and I know Twitter is not a real representation of the Flyers fan base as a whole. I think Flyers fans, for the most part, are educated. They know what's going on. They keep up to date with the team, things like that. But we know Rocky Thompson is not the guy for the power play. We could say that and be nice, right? He's not the guy that's going to figure things out on the power play. We know that the power play stinks. It's not going to change with however many games are left in the regular season. So I'm like Konechny hasn't been the same player since Four Nations, right? Probably playing through an injury. We were all wondering why Seth Jarvis played over him in the medal game. Well, probably because Konechny is hurt. Hasn't looked the same since coming back to the Flyers. 1 goal in his last 20-some games. And you have all the TK guys coming out. And look, I used to be one of them, right? But I can change my mind. I can change my opinion. If a player starts to prove, hey, I'm better than what Jim thinks, I'm smart enough to be able to change my mind. And so but if the main goal, Jack, is to lose games and bottom out for that top 4, top 5 pick, which is in reach, who gives a shit how many goals Konechny scores the last 20 games? Who gives a shit how bad Rocky Thompson is, how bad the Flyers power play is, right? Maybe I just don't have it in me to complain, because what's the point? But really, what's the point, Jack? Am I missing something?
No, when it comes to Twitter, it's with a lot of people, it's just feeding a narrative they're already pushing. And we've discussed this before. And take Torts out of the equation, because that is such low-hanging fruit for these people. They're always negative no matter what. And we said this before. If you are a constantly negative person, fan of the Flyers, it's a win-win for you. You can spit all this BS about how they suck and everything is wrong. And if this rebuild doesn't work out, you're right. Good for you. You were right. If you're wrong, then the Flyers are good. So who cares? Nobody's going to remember. and the team's good. You can finally be happy, maybe. So it's a cowardly way of following the team. You got to believe in something at some point. And I looked at where the team was when Fletcher was here and about to be kicked out the door, to what Briere took over and what has transpired. And I don't understand how you can have an issue with, outside of some earth-shaking move or winning back-to-back lotteries or something. I don't know how it could be any better than it is. We may have our issues with defense and definitely with center, but we have a legitimate superstar in the making. We haven't had that since Giroux. And back then when Hextall was rebuilding and Fletcher was retooling, these guys were aging with the core that couldn't support them, and it just looked like you were trying to put Band-Aids and fix something that ultimately was going to fall to pieces, and it's exactly what happened. At least now there's a plan in place, and if you look at everything that Briere and Keith Jones have done. It's exactly what they told you they were going to do from the start. And this is exactly what they're doing. It's not going to be perfect along the way. There's going to be bumps. Like, look at the Cutter trade. Like, who saw that coming? You know, the goaltending situation right now that is the hands down the number one issue with this team. And people who hate Torts just ignore that and go right for him. Oh, you benched Michkov. But again, they're not trying to win. They're not trying to make the playoffs. They're rebuilding. They're trying to make every player better. And Torts is going to do that defensively. He's going to do that defensively. And at some point, we're going to get the offense going with an offensive guy and whatnot. We're going to do what we have to do now. And I'm not going to get all bent out of shape if they lose games, because that's kind of the goal right now. We know what they were going to do at the deadline. It's just ridiculous that I have to say this and explain this like we don't already know. Last season completely screwed with people. You and me, Jim, people who are tuned in, plenty of fans, plenty of people in the comments, we know that they were going through the early stages of a rebuild. And because they had the goaltending, Carter Hart was here, Urson was a fine backup, and they had Coots playing well at the beginning of the season. They had Farabee playing well at the beginning of the season. They had other players. They completely screwed people thinking that we were going to take off from that point. Oh, we barely missed the playoffs, but we'll add Michkov, lose Hart. Coots is pretty, a bottom six player at this point. Farabee and Frost are moved. Like, we're going to make the playoffs now? Like, we're only going to go upward from there? That's not how a rebuild works. I understand we're not tearing it down to the studs, but even that year, and this is what gets me, that people don't understand this, they actually expected us to perform better this year than we did last year, which was possible, I guess, but the goaltending's not there. But even if they don't, you're that upset? Like, I don't understand that. Like, it makes no sense. You traded away at the deadline when you traded Sean Walker. And this year, you're trading away again at the deadline because it's a rebuild. They're not ready to compete. Competing would be stupid. Sure, if they magically made the playoffs, would the experience be good? It'd be great. The only person I really care about that now is Michkov, and that was last year, not this year. So I just think it's a narrative that they use whatever they can to push. People will forever be negative, and all we can do is sit back and let things unfold, hope for a little luck, hope we pick the right players, and hope we develop them properly. I don't know what's going to happen with the coaching staff. I don't know what's going to happen with certain players in the field. I don't know what they're going to make trades with these picks or if they're going to make these picks. We have to wait and see. All we can do is improve our odds at this point. Why people are upset about that or watch a bad game and want to shit all over Torts even more. If you want to talk about Rocky Thompson, I'll give you that one. I'll give you that one because I don't get that whole thing. I was hoping he would show us why they love him so much, and it's just not there. And I understand the personnel is a thing, but it's like historically bad at this point. Like, come on, you're still up a guy. So that's a whole other conversation. But like to get upset for where they are now, what they're doing now is baffling to me. It's just, and I think it's bullshit. I really think people pushing these negative narratives, whether it be the coach or the team or the front office, they know where the team is at and what they're doing, what they should be doing. But it goes against their narrative. So they'll purposely ignore that and push all the negative stuff. We're headed right back down. How about the comparisons with Briere and Hextall? Like that was like a thing for a while. Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if it popped back around again, And I don't think they can say that now. Briere's already traded away more players than Hextall has. But still, like that's just that negativity. Sky is falling and they're never going to fix it out. They're never going to fix things out, figure things out. It's the end. And we're going to be forever bad. And it's utterly ridiculous. Believe in something. Latch on to something. If you don't like what Briere and Keith Jones are doing, I would love to see what you're going to do because you can't trade bad players for good players. You can't do that. So tell me what your plan is because I think they're doing exactly what they told us. It's going to be a slow process. Buckle up. It is what it is. Buckle up.
Hashtag it. All right. Yeah. So Sam, a couple good comments here. Fans are frustrated because we watch these games and it's a horrible experience, and that's reasonable. That said, Sam's excited about the direction of the organization, and I get that 100%. Look, I could easily allow myself to get like emotionally invested and angry and this and that. Look, the fact is, though, Briere's been the GM of this team. This is going to be his third draft. He drafted Michkov. He drafted Luchenko. Let him have. This is going to be, I think, his second full off season. Or is it his third, Jack?
Third, because he took over in like
at the end of the year.
The 1 year.
That's right. Yeah. So like, how long does a rebuild really take? So the Flyers, I think, tried to do a couple things here. They hired Torts, I think, before Briere actually took over. And so I think the mindset with Tortorella was, let's try to work with what we have. We have a somewhat youngish roster, and we'll try to do the rebuild thing on the fly. And if we make the playoffs along the way, that's great. It's good experience. We want to change the culture, this and that. I think they reached that crossroads this past trade deadline or this past month. And the whole maybe evaluation thing is starting to close up on some guys. Frost Farabee out of here. They finally pulled the trigger on Lawton, right? They're figuring out, I think, that they can trade for defensive guys and flip them, and Walker. And if you even want to, I don't think Eric Johnson was a flip, but he's a guy that they traded for, and he was really good for PR for the Flyers. So I think whether we can see it or not, there are things changing. And I think maybe it's hard to see that you're in a rebuild and things are happening while the team is losing games. And
let me, I'm sorry. I just want to address something real quick if you're okay with it. Flyers Purgatory, you put up a lot of good comments. They're obviously on the other side of the aisle, and that's fine. I like the conversation. Everything you said there is somewhat true. They did say that. They did say they wanted to compete. However, that's not priority one. They wanted to compete with guys that they had. Things happened. I discussed it. Like, they were good last year, and Coots stopped playing like Coots. Farabee felt the games got too hard. And most importantly, and this is a huge thing here, huge, they lost Carter Hart. And Erson's not a number one. That will sink any team, hands down. Goaltending is way too important. And it did. It literally, that and many other factors as well. The whole thing with Torts and Coots. I'm a Torts guy, but the way that Coots stuff was handled right after being named captain was not good. It did not work out. And this season, even so, still have no goaltending. You're going to, sure, Fedotov will have a good game, once or twice a month, maybe? Like, Erson's playing way too many games. He's fallen off a cliff. The whole Kolosov saga. Goaltending is a massive issue. And it's so underlooked. And then I see this here, and this is further commenting. So should we be positive when they do dumb shit? Bonk over Peralt. You know what? Peralt didn't go like number 2 in the draft. A lot of teams didn't take Peralt, and Bonk's not a bad prospect. But this is such hindsight stuff with the draft. Hindsight 2020 stuff, and that's just crap. I can't support that. We were all surprised about Boyum. We all were on the spot. Does it have something to do with his agent? Maybe. Is that a good excuse? No, it's not. Ultimately, time will tell. Center was more of a need, but Jim and I both obviously preferred Boyum. Maybe you're right about that one. Maybe Drysdale over Rossi was a good choice as well, because I think the ship has sailed on Rossi. But, like, let's see the finished product before we go back and nitpick every little thing they did wrong. Because we could be wrong. We could be totally wrong about Boyum. We could be wrong about Rossi. We could be wrong about Drysdale's. Look, has been one of the better stories of this year, because I was willing to give him the entire year. And I think he didn't even need it. He's already starting to show that he has something in the tank, which is huge. Next year is going to be a big one for him. Definitely with some other players too. But we're continually trading players away, not adding. Once they start adding, then we can see. Come on. Everybody said it. Yeah, everybody said Nolan Patrick was going to be the top pick of the draft. And look at all the players that went after him too. Can't do that with the draft. Come on. How many times do guys now Yakupov strike? Or even think Ryan Murray went number 2. Either of those guys worth a damn? No. Can't go by what the Bob McKenzie's puts out in his top 20. Like, you have to play it out. You have to see what you have. It is 100% hindsight. That is exactly what hindsight is, you son of a bitch. Sorry, Jim. Go ahead.
You good? You got that all out?
I think that Flyers Purgatory and I are going to have a little one-on-one. Is what I'm getting at here.
So I like some of his points.
Message me, little guy.
Do you know who he is?
I don't know. I have no idea, and I don't care. I want him to message me.
He's got
He does. See,
there are some good talking points.
That's the first point I made. It may be the other side of the aisle, but it's good conversation, which is what my one-on-ones are about. So, if you follow me on Twitter, please, so I can message you. If you're down, of course. If you beat me, I'll give you a hat. How's that?
Where we go?
There's a lot of good comments that I couldn't help myself.
Yeah, let's take our time because we have 40 more minutes left in the show, and let's get to those. Let's get to our topics too here. Okay, so we were talking about where the Flyers were in the rebuild, and I was kind of getting to the crossroads part because the Flyers, I think they wanted to go one way originally when they hired Tortorella, and they figured out, okay, well, we're not going to go that way. We have to actually start selling guys off. Now, look, if people want to critique that and say they could have done this 2 years ago, this could have been started 2 years ago. Sure, there's an argument for that. And I think it's perfectly fair to make. And one day we'll have that conversation. At this point, now it looks like they're really ramping up things. They're moving guys off the roster. They're stocking up draft picks. They have a lot of money coming off the books to spend in free agency. Now it really does look like a rebuild, and there's a plan, coming to fruition. So one of my questions here is I think who Purgatory was bringing up at one point it would be Torts. I think it's well documented that we like John Tortorella as a coach, as a human. But at this point in his Flyers coaching tenure, I am leaning towards this is it for Torts. I don't think he needs to see year 4. I'm not sure why he needs to be here for year 4. And if somebody can make a compelling argument to potentially convince me of why Torts should be here for year 4, I'm all ears.
Only thing I'll say to that, let's say that David Carl and Mike Sullivan are not available. Who are you bringing in? Because I don't want to fire him just to move on. But however, if there's somebody they want and they think is like their guy, all for it. But if that guy's not available, why are we making a move just for the Flyers bring in Seattle's assistant? Why? Get your guy. Don't just hire anybody for the sake of hiring anybody. That's the only thing I'll say. And I thought this name might get brought up. Wouldn't that be something of a retread, though? More of the same? I mean, I'd be okay with it. I like coaches that are hard on their players. but players nowadays, sorry, but they're a little bit sissies to that. They get bent out of shape real easy. If one coach says, if you have a problem, come see me, and nobody comes and sees him, it's like, come on. You can't baby them, but that's how these players are nowadays. You almost have to baby them. So the right coach needs to be available. If he's not available, do you still pull the trigger?
Well, I think you need to have maybe a certain and Flyers Purgatory is close to the point that I'm going to make here. I think you need to have you need to have a certain style of play in mind when picking a coach. And let's say that the coach they want's not available. If you can find a guy that's willing to take a 3-year deal, which shouldn't be very hard, and he's sort of you're the guy that's going to fill in the gap until your guy's available. Because you're right. If your guy's not available, you shouldn't be, paying one of these guys. Like Rick Tocchet for me would have been a guy that I would have hired in the past.
Like when they hired Torts.
When they hired Torts, right. Yeah. But now that they've had a guy like Torts, I don't think you can hire a guy like Tocchet. It would just be more of the same.
I agree.
And I think the room is sort of tired of that. And I think the culture is changed. I think the Flyers definitely play a competitive style of hockey. So that's here. Let's get it. Let's channel that and, pair this team up with a coach, that can teach and motivate in different ways. Because all coaches, I think, teach and motivate. But let's go somewhere else now, because that purgatory comment was right. And I'll read it real quick just for the podcast listeners, so we didn't forget about you guys. So Flyers Purgatory chimes in, you can't play playoff style hockey for 82 games. Look at the guys coming out of Four Nations. There were like 50 blocked shots clear of next team at midway point of the year. All top 5 teams were bad teams, and the Flyers block a lot of shots. And so there was a comment a few weeks ago by Cam York saying that the Flyers play a really hard style of hockey to play for an entire year, and that's exactly what he was talking about. And I don't know if it was a coincidence that he was benched not long after that, but for a player like Cam York, who, could be easy to say for somebody like me, the Flyers should be kicking the tires on some trades and see what they can get for Cam York. Maybe all he's doing is what the coach is asking him to do, and that's play a hard style of hockey, block shots, be tough in the corners, things like that. And look, that's going to wear on a guy that's his size, right? He's not the biggest guy. TK, not the biggest guy, right? And it's funny because I'm seeing a lot of the same accounts that are trashing TK also trash Torts. And it's like, well, how they kind of contradict themselves, because they're trashing Torts because they don't like the kind of coach he is and the style of hockey that he has the guys playing, whatever. And TK's playing the style of hockey that Torts wants, and he's banged up, So I don't know. Like, if you have a thought, like, let's do a little bit more thinking kind of deal. Yeah. So there you go. Purgatory again. I think he's just kind of on the same wavelength tonight. Like, just think things through, the Flyers are one of the smaller teams in the NHL, and they're playing playoff style hockey, which is fun to watch for fans, but they don't have the talent. They don't have the size. So I guess in short, Jack, if the coach they want's not available and they can find a guy that's sort of a stopgap, I would explore it still. I just think the Torts thing has run its course, fortunately or unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a tough sell if I'm that coach. It's like, it's not like you're signing a goalie to a 3-year deal until your guy's ready. You know what I mean? If you want to be a head coach, especially if you're taking that step up. Some of the guys might still do it, but it's kind of like, yeah, things don't go well. We're ready to move on from you when the real guy becomes available. So good luck, And I saw Shaw was mentioned, and I feel like that kind of stuff does happen, and that's how you lose that guy, because ultimately he's not a head coach, and he's best where he's at. This is why Mike Sullivan's perfect, because I feel like he would keep Brad Shaw. I don't know that, but it makes sense with the Tortorella coaching tree. And somebody had asked, like, do you give Tortorella credit for, like, development, turning Sanheim's career around? York was good last year. Risto turning his career around. A lot of these defensemen. It's like, I do, because he hired Shaw, and Shaw means a lot to this team. And I'm seeing a lot of, we should hire a coach like this established very good coach, a coach like this established very good coach. Like, finding those guys is going to be tough. Like, and you're also still rebuilding. So are you really like, we need that coach now? I know a lot of people are like, oh, but he's a lame duck coach. Well, this is a unique situation. Torts has already said this is his last go at a bit. At least that's what he said. I'm not extending the guy by any means. But if he is going to go into the front office like we kind of alluded to when we first signed him, I don't mind having him be a lame duck coach. And the first thing I'm going to hear back about that is, well, the message will get lost. Well, you're out of here. He's not out of here. He's going to the front office. And one, if the message is lost, he just won't play you. You won't play. And that's pretty stupid. If you don't, if you have that much of an issue that you're willing to be sat. And then he's still going to be with the organization anyway. So I don't see it that way. Now, if they can move on this offseason, a person of value becomes available, I am all for it. I'm just not rushing to do it for just anybody in hopes that we find our Rod the Bod or our Mike Sullivan or whoever, because every time this team has done that for the longest time, it's ended very badly. We've only really done well with established coaches.
Sure. And so let's kind of move on just a bit here. So still on Torts somewhat. but he's been speaking a bit more candidly about players in the media. Talked pretty positive about Bobby Brink last week after the game against the Lightning.
Rightfully so.
After that, it's been somewhat odd, right? Like, you want a straight shooter coach, but do you start losing respect for a guy when he starts talking about you in the media? Look, if Torts has an opinion, let's say, on Cam York, and he thinks Cam York's only at best a second pair D, do you want him out in the media saying that? Because your player's going to hear that, right? And what's that do to a player? Does that hurt your confidence, or does that make you want to prove your coach wrong? And we've heard a player like Cam York come out and say, I don't play for the coach. I play for these guys. So Torts didn't say that. That was just the example I'm giving. But he did say that he thinks Sam Ersson is more of a like a 1B, like a backup type goalie in this league. And, while Ersson hasn't had the best season and he's looked very bad at times, why say that to the media? Why say it to the media? I just don't understand the point of doing that. You come out constantly and say, this kid's got a great head on his shoulders. He's doing this, he's doing that. The Flyers aren't a good team. Ersson does give up bad goals. Wasn't supposed to be the team's starting goaltender. He is. He's giving you the best he's got. What's the point of coming out and saying that, do you think, Jack?
I know a lot of coaches don't do that. It's a Torts thing, and maybe it's a part of the reason why a lot of people want to move on, because these players today they just don't have the tough skin. Torts brought it up when he talked about wanting to pick a fight with York when he was sent to the Phantoms. And whether York wants to admit it or not, or whether we don't know if it had an effect, when York came back from the Phantoms, he had the best season he's had as a Flyer. So whether it was the trip down, pissing him off, or Torts, or whatever, I don't care who says what. It's a results-based business. We got results. And that's ultimately all I care about. So look, what is wrong with pointing out the obvious here? Like, do you have to look at your own stats? Do you have to be pampered to come out of your slump? Or do you challenge a player and see if they can figure it out? Because Torts being here was all about one thing, really, or two things, I'll say. Establishing the culture, which I think they've basically done, and getting guys out of here who do not belong, whether that be culture or skill or what. And one way to figure out what you have in a guy who you're iffy on as it is to challenge him. And I would assume he had been challenged not in the media. Well, it's not working. So what's the next step? Like, do you just ignore it? Like, if I were a player and Torts didn't show me, and you may have said this, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm a player and Torts shows me no mind or matter, I'm probably out of here. He probably has no interest in me. If he's saying stuff to me about me, then he probably gives a rat's ass and thinks there's something there, and maybe he can pull it out of me, even if it's called tough love. Tough love used to be a thing in this world before people all got bent out of shape. So maybe it's that. Now, if this team is trying to win and they have a winning record and they're pushing for the playoffs, and you do something like that, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. It can derail a team. Players get upset. They suck. They're a joke. And rightfully so. We understand what the roster is and where we're at. But if you're going to do something like that, now's the time. I understand the negative ramifications of it. But at the end of the day, if you're going to be a Stanley Cup winning team and you're going to be a really good player in this league, a part of that team, you're going to face a lot of adversity. So this should be nothing. This should be nothing. Put up or shut up. It's the NHL, for Christ's sake. This isn't the minor leagues. This isn't that Russia bullshit. It's the NHL. If you want to stick in the NHL because the whole league sees that you're not a number one starting goaltender, put up or shut up. End of story. That's what it is to me. If your feelings are hurt, well, I'm sorry. I hope you make a boatload in the AHL. Good luck with that. Or you could show your worth. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, sure. And that's kind of how I was thinking too. There's two ways to look at it. This could motivate me to prove my coach wrong, or, I'm wondering if guys in the locker room notice these things, and Torts is a jackass. You know what I mean? Like in a locker room, I think it's rare, at least from my experience, that the coach is sort of in your group. The players kind of have their own bond. And so, like, if the coach is going to go out in the media and, say shit about one of the players, it's kind of like, he's all about, come talk to him. Why is he talking about me to the press? Do you know what I mean? If he's got a problem, don't start me and I'll come talk to him. Why is he?
Well, that's a lot of behind this.
Does that make sense?
It does.
But these are the questions that may pop up. And if we're trying to keep a room close, like, I get players could unite and play, and somebody said it in the chat, and play well in spite of the coach. That could be a tactic as well. But I think from a fan or a media standpoint, it's kind of like, this doesn't really match up with what you're telling the guys.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a results-based business. And I do think that players now should be able, and they can't, but they got to, especially as a goalie, you have to have thick skin. I think it's a challenge. And did he try that stuff behind the scenes? Ultimately, we don't know. We can't say. We're not there. We're not in the locker room. I don't know if they've had conversations where, like, yeah, you need to pick it up. Like, we thought you could be number one goalie. You're proving the otherwise to the front office, to the point where we think that they're going to go get a veteran goalie for next year, whether it be a stopgap or maybe something more long-term. I don't know. Like, that was not the feeling coming into the season. That's the feeling now. So, hey, heads up, pal. Figure it out, or you're either going to be a career backup or out of here. So, like, again, I just keep coming back to tough love.
Yeah. And, you have to assume, right? That's what it is. So, yeah. All right. So we talked about Urson, and I don't want to spend too much time on this one, Jack. I kind of just want to tease it a little bit. But Carter Hart's name has been mentioned in Flyers pre-games, Flyers post-games. Tortorella has mentioned him now multiple times. And it's been announced that I believe it's the trial or this whole case starts April 22nd, which is just over a month away. The NHL playoffs will be going on during this time. But based off what we know off the ice, which we won't talk about on the show, do you find it odd at all that his name's coming up in? Because this is where I'm coming from, if I'm a conspiracy theorist.
I do, because they've talked about, like, they've kind of alluded to the situation, and they never dropped his name. They've alluded to the goaltending situation. They'd say things in the past like, oh, well, it is what it is. What happened, happened. They weren't really so quick to name drop him for some reason. Now, he's being name dropped constantly. The pregame, other outlets, like I saw Hartnell say his name like 3 times before the game the other night. Like, it's almost like they have been let off their leash and they can say his name again or something. And why would that be? And it's not one guy here. It's like several. I'm sorry, with there's smoke, there's fire. Whether they know something or they have confidence in something, ultimately we'll see. But they are suddenly have no issue saying his name like it's nothing. And I think there's something to that.
Yeah, and so if I'm a conspiracy theorist and if I know anything about media and things like that, and I don't know if the Flyers have coordinated anything to do this intentionally or not, but if you hear a guy's name over and over again, you start to just become more comfortable hearing his name. And if you have people now out there like Tortorella, for one, saying the Flyers would have made the playoffs last year by 6-7 points. You might have fans out there that will go, oh man, if only we had Carter Hart, if only this stuff didn't happen, kind of thing, kind of softening people up, or even, somewhat not really brainwashing, but planting the seed in people's minds. If only we had Carter Hart, if only that stuff didn't happen, right? And, who knows, what's what with this case. If he's guilty, certainly, should be punished for what he did. If he's truly innocent and gets off, it would feel to me like I have this sneaky suspicion that the door would be opened for Carter Hart if if he's cleared, if he's not charged with anything, if his name's cleared. I just have a sneaky suspicion that there could be something there. I don't have anything concrete. or anything that says, this is definitely going to happen. But that's just the feeling that I have. And for his name to be coming up now in the last at least month is just weird to me. So that's all. That's all I really have on that.
I couldn't agree more. There's a reason that it's not like one person said it. Like several people have been openly saying it to the media like it's nothing. No problem. It's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence.
Yeah. And so we'll see what happens with that. But
Mika, first rebuild team he's been with, though. Come on. First rebuild team. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. What do we have here?
Some good stuff in the
comments. Let's take a look through here. They're using a scapegoat for a down season. Talking point straight from the top from Grant Shilley. Grant, I don't know if I've seen you in here before. So if you're a new subscriber, welcome to our weekly live show. I assume you're talking about Sam Urson or John Tortorella. Let us know who you're talking about there, because I'm not sure.
I assume Tortorella. He said for the down season. Clear that up, Grant.
Yeah, look. Say whatever you want about Torts. I'm crediting him for why they are where they are. Oh, Carter Hart. Yeah, Carter Hart could certainly be the scapegoat. Sure. Yeah, and that's kind of the third thing. So yeah, that was kind of the third thing there.
Well, goaltending is bad.
That's just the excuse, right? You could use Carter Hart. So
I guess dropping his name, but I mean, it's not a scapegoat in the sense that the goaltending has really affected this team. I mean, if you ask me what went wrong besides them rebuilding in the 2024-2025 season, I'd be hands down the goaltending.
Yeah, it's been bad.
And then the power play.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see what we got left on our topic list here. We have. Did you see the comments on Michkov by former NHL great Ilya Kovalchuk?
I did see it. And God, was Kovalchuk good.
Yeah, especially with the Devils when he retired suddenly, wasn't he?
Yeah, remember those contracts? Yeah. Remember the Devils got docked the draft pick for that, which they ultimately got back. The NHL's a joke. But yeah, I mean, obviously he made his bones with the Atlanta Thrashers, but yeah, got traded to the Devils, was only there for a couple of years. And then don't forget about a stint in LA, trying to make a little bit of a comeback. It didn't go so well. But in his heyday, talk about top goal scorer, holy moly.
Yeah, I thought his comments were interesting too. So, and once again, it was like an sort of a shot at Torts by starting out with, he thinks it's tough for a young player to gain confidence when he's coached the way that he's been coached. But also, playing on a number one power play as a 19, 20-year-old should be good for your confidence. So sort of mixed reviews on how things are going with Michkov, but he commented on him. So we reported on it, made a little video, self-plug after this episode. Make sure you go check it out. I think it's like 2-3 minutes long. So give it a view. Let me know what you guys think. Give it a subscribe and a like and all that deal. So yeah, just thought it was interesting. Wanted to bring it up. And let's see. We got 2 more big topics, I think, here. So we want the Flyers to finish bottom 5. So here's my big question of the night. We have about 15 minutes left in our show. Jack, with Gavin McKenna doing just unreal things right now, does this offseason for the Flyers need to be the big one? Does it need to be?
I guess not, but you really want it to be. You look at what they need. You look at what's available. You look at everything. And so are you referring to more the draft or the offseason in general?
Yeah, offseason in general, yeah.
All right. So it's two different animals. This is not the free agent offseason. We know that. But I do think they have to do something significant. I kind of alluded to it last year, and you were kind of like, well, why? And I get that. But look, they raised ticket prices. Michkov is here. The losing is, I think, affecting the team. And I think something happens. I don't know what it is, but I think they do something. I think now's the time. I think they've alluded to it. Whether it be a offer sheet, which we talk about it like it's a foregone conclusion. These things are very rare. Sure, could they make a comeback? Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. Will the Flyers be the team to do that? I don't know. And Wyatt Johnson re-signed, so who's your target? So I
don't think they should, for as much talk as that's getting, I don't think that would be the smart move.
I just don't think it's going to happen. I really don't. I until I see it. And the ones we've had have been very like the last 2 or 3 offer sheets, right? Doug Armstrong for the Blues. He's got a successor in the waiting. He brings in Broberg and Holloway. And he literally said, I did it because I'll take the heat, probably get moved to the president or just retire. And that heat is not on the next GM. So there was like a plan in place to not get screwed over by offer sheeting somebody. But then the one before that with Montreal and Carolina, that was like almost, didn't they work out a deal or something anyway? Like it felt very fake. And then I don't even know one before that. What, Holmgren with Shea Weber? You have to go back that far? So until I see it happen, it's not a legitimate way to go get somebody you need. So that leaves what? A flat out trade.
Well, I want to say this about the RFA stuff too. So for a team like the Flyers, who's trying to reestablish their presence and good reputation among the league, and Danny Briere, who's still somewhat of a new GM, offer sheeting or whatever it is, offer sheeting another team's RFA would be the opposite of doing what they're trying to do. You mentioned the GM of the Blues who was on his way out. Like, he didn't give 2 shits because he's not going to be there to suffer the repercussions, or he's been around long enough to not give a shit about his reputation anymore. So he can do something like that. Say, here, Blues, I'll do you one favor on my way out. I'll go get you 2 guys. I'll sign them the offer sheets that I know Edmonton can't match, whatever it is. The Carolina-Montreal thing, I think Carolina ended up screwing themselves in that one, because whatever contract they gave Kotkaniemi, Montreal didn't match, and Kotkaniemi is not even living up to whatever that is. I think he's only making like $5 million a year, something like that.
Even at the time, and it was more they had given him just to get him away from there. But even at the time, I was like, why are they so? Yeah. I mean, in the draft, they chose the right player in Shinetsikov, but they really liked Kotkaniemi too. And it was like, I don't know why they like him so much. I don't know. It was the old GM, so whatever. Yeah. But that's my point. It's been like goofy ones like that. Yeah. And even the Flyers only did that with Weber because obviously they lost Pronger, but it was getting pretty close to Weber being traded to the Rangers. And the Flyers said, yeah, that can't happen. Sorry. And I agree with them. I'm like, yeah, we're not sending him to our rival. We're offering you everything under the sun. You're saying, no, you're going to trade him up north? I don't think so. So kudos for that. But that was what, 2013 or something, or something ridiculous?
Yeah, a while back. It's
well like over 10 years ago. So until I see it happen, that's not an obvious route for them to take. I think you're looking at just drafting or trades. Yeah. They have the ammunition to make a trade. They've talked like they are big game hunting or hunting in some way, shape, or form. We just got to see what happens. So I don't think it has to happen, but I do expect something to happen. 2026 is where I expect the biggest of moves.
Is it more so you want it to happen or you expect it to happen?
Okay, it's a little bit of both, but the reason I always want it, but it's the reason I expect it is because they have the ammunition to make it happen.
Okay.
They're gonna have one first round pick in 2026. I guess you could say 2027 they have 2 first rounders. They have 3 first rounders this year, 4 second rounders. I don't expect them to draft with all those picks. There's no way.
Okay. Would you be upset if they traded those picks for more 2026 first round picks?
Not
Kind
their,
of kicking
not
kicking
their
the can
pick,
down the road, but
like they did in
essentially that's what
2025.
they'd be doing. Yeah.
How I'm hearing 2026 supposed to be a better draft. No, I wouldn't. And you can always move those picks in 2026 as well.
Yeah.
But I've heard that about 2025 too. Oh, it's going to be a good draft. Now it's whatever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of all I mean.
As long as they don't do their own pick, which they won't. There's no way. But like, hold on. I got to check the standings real quick. I feel like the Edmonton's like, who's barely hanging on to the playoffs? So I know that Colorado kind of loaded up.
Yeah, go ahead and look that up real quick. And I want to read this because it's making me laugh.
All right. So Edmonton's.
Let me read this real quick. So Grant chimes in. What are the odds McJesus leaves Edmonton? The Flyers give him a blank check. Would he even sign here?
I mean, he took the plane ride back. Yeah, I'm sure they talked about it, right?
So I'm going to say this. If you're willing to play in Edmonton, I got to imagine that you're willing to play anywhere. I would assume the Flyers would be a place on his list. However, because I was trying to, spring up a little theory, and I'm willing to, admit if something's not going to come to fruition, if my dot connecting is just not going to happen.
Just seems like a ridiculous, like in a couple of years, hopefully in 2 years, hopefully everything we planned, it just never works that way. Like they plan things months out and it doesn't work.
So I was able to talk to an Edmonton beat writer. He also works for Sportsnet, yada, yada. He told me this, Grant. Are you ready for this? There is no possible scenario in his mind that McDavid ever leaves Edmonton. And he attributed it to McDavid and Draisaitl's wives being close. McDavid and Draisaitl are best friends. And he even said that Draisaitl signing for as long as he did kind of signaled that Draisaitl would not have signed that deal if McDavid even thought about leaving. So no shot, according to this source. So we'll see.
Makes perfect sense. Like I totally understand.
Yeah.
When the only time I thought he wanted out of Edmonton was when the lottery happened and Edmonton won number 1. It's the only time I thought he wanted nothing to do with Edmonton. Ever since that, look, if they were not making the playoffs or getting bounced in the first round, they went to Game 7 for God's sake. Like, I don't see it either. You never know, but I don't see it either.
No. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this offseason, kind of had a little short discussion in the group chat a little earlier today, and Gavin McKenna popped up, I think, or maybe just in my head. And I'm going to share a screen here. And I just want to present this to everyone watching. This is Gavin McKenna. This will be the first round pick in the 2026 NHL draft. 121 points in 54 games played in the WHL. Okay. Very good player. I think he's put up the most points in the WHL since Mario Lemieux. Is that what it was? I can't quite remember.
Surpassed him or something, or was going to.
So
crazy.
It's pretty damn good. And that's the guy that, this is now my mindset. The Flyers have been bad for so long, and it looks like they're doing the rebuild thing. What's the rush? Let's get this generational talent.
I'd be all for it. Are you kidding me? I would
what's
bottom
one more
out.
year?
I'd pay Konechny money to have a season-ending injury, or at least pretend he has one, like the Tampa Bay does for the playoffs and Vegas does for the playoffs or something. It'd be worth it. It'd be totally worth it. But there's one big problem. His name's Gary Bettman. He's going to do whatever he's got to do to get this guy on the Penguins. I mean, he looks like a Penguin. Look at the kid. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't see it happening. Again, they rose ticket prices because of Michkov.
He's here.
Apparently, yeah, he's here. They're big game hunting, apparently. They have the assets. We'll ultimately see. But I would do it. I would endure. I would delete Twitter because that would be insufferable. They could Flyers be like, we want McKenna. You do too. Trust us. Just deal with it this year. And people still be like, I can't believe Torts is a bad coach. Like, it'd be like, oh, I'd be like, oh, dude, come on. There's a clear path here. But even if they did figure it out and finish dead last, the lottery would screw up. Somebody would jump them. It would happen. So it's like, do I deep down kind of hope that they are in, I guess, lottery luck? Sure. But that's about as far as I could go with it, realistically.
Yeah. And there are good players in this draft. And
as Benit says, he was younger than Luchenko was at his draft, and he's putting up those numbers. Like
McKenna.
Yeah.
Look
at that. He's almost 2008. December 20th. Christ.
Crazy, isn't it?
Christ was born 5 days later. Sorry.
Yeah. So Gavin McKenna. I mean, I don't even know. Do we even want? I'm not touching on this.
This is the only way. It's the only way.
Yeah. And this is that's kind of my point. Like, who cares how bad the power play is if we want to bottom out? Like,
I think people's argument will be, what about Michkov? What about, and Forrester even? Like, a lot of these, you want to see their point totals go up. Forrester and Tippett, these guys are goal scorers. They're not padding their stats with the power play points. I'm with you, Jim. I want you to know that.
Michov's got the power play numbers. He's got 7 goals, 8 assists on the power play. That's pretty good for a rookie.
Should be 14 and 16. I'm just skipping.
Well, how many of those points turn those games into wins?
Well, as long as it doesn't, this works perfectly.
But you see what I'm saying, though?
Absolutely. I'm with you. Because I understand we're in a rebuild. I can endure it. I've been enduring it for 10 plus years. It feels like. What's one more, as you had said? So I mean, for a guy like this, I would do it. Absolutely. And I know nothing's a guarantee, but this is the kind of, but he's not a center, Jim. He's a left wing.
Like, if Konechny's scoring 35, 40 goals, like people are bitching about, and Michkov's putting up, 30 goals and power play numbers, how many of the games that the Flyers are losing do they win? And they still miss the playoffs. Don't we want to suck?
It's hard to – I mean, when you talk to people in the offseason, it's like, yes, absolutely. Once the season starts, they can't handle it. Not everybody.
And that's the title of the episodes. Can Flyers fans handle the pain of a rebuild?
Well, the answer is no.
No,
but again, the Flyers raise prices. There's no way they're going to do that unless something catastrophic happens.
Yeah, I mean, the Sixers did it during the process,
Well, they're assholes. Look at their owner. He owns the Devils, for God's sake. Josh Harris or something. He's a piece of trash. And the Commanders. When COVID happened, he fired everybody. He's a piece of trash.
What do you think about the D-man being mocked number 1 in this draft, Matthew Schaefer?
I do think he's going to go number 1.
Yeah, I'm glad. Teddy, well, I'm not going to bullshit. I haven't watched Matthew Schaefer at all. I know he's being projected number 1. I haven't watched him, so I can't honestly give you my opinion there.
He looks legit. For a draft where the number 1 pick has changed a lot, he looks like he's going to be number 1 no matter who's drafting because it's defense, where I think number 2, I don't even think it's going to be Hagens. I really think it's going to be Misa. Misa's on fire right now. And of course, that's who we want. That's who the Flyers are interested in. So we're hoping for lottery luck. Let's just increase our odds. We don't look, God, for hockey God, we don't want the number 1 pick. We'll take 2. Just give us 2. We've had such luck there with JVR, Nolan Patrick, 3 times the charm. Michael, I guarantee you they would take Misa over Hagens as well. If they find themselves in that position, they would do that. But I do think Schaefer's going to go number 1. Let somebody else take him, and we'll settle for 2. And he's just look at that. Christ in heaven. He's got almost as many goals as he does games played, and he's got more assists than he does games played. I know that McKenna's numbers were ridiculous. These are pretty ridiculous in their own right. And I thought, he says, why is everybody listed as left wing? He definitely plays center.
Let me ask you a question, Jack. Does the fact that he plays in the OHL scare you off at all?
No, not anymore. Everybody's too soft nowadays. I'm not too worried about it.
So I just want to show, because those are Michael Misa's 3 years in Saginaw. Currently, And we all know who the Flyers drafted from the OHL that they just traded. Those are Morgan Frost's OHL numbers with the Sioux Greyhounds. What are your thoughts there, Jack? Should we put this much stock in an OHL player again? And I believe Nathan McKinnon was an OHL guy, but Nathan McKinnon is also top 2 player in the world.
I don't think that Morgan Frost.
Oh, he's QMJHL. I apologize.
I don't think that Morgan Frost, who is should have went in early second round, he went late first, should turn you off to a guy who's going to go number 1 or number 2 or number 3 in this year's draft. I think there's a big difference for that for a reason.
Is there?
I mean, look at the 2017 draft and who went number 1 and number 2 or the top 10, I should say, and where Frost went. And I think there's a reason for that.
Okay.
I think a lot of that might be compete. And my overall, and we've had, who was that guy? We had him on our podcast. He went in the second round. What is his name? He rooms with Morgan Frost, and Morgan Frost gave this very out in space kind of huh? Like I don't think he was all there. A guy like Misa is pure hockey. I think from that aspect, there's a difference. I think this guy has just put his head down and continued to just perform and get better and better and better. For Frost, I think just kind of goes with the flow. He's like, I got skill. I can do what I want. And here's a good point. Is this true? Is that true? Frost did that at 19. McKenna's doing it. Oh, McKenna. Now we're talking about Misa. Damn it.
I think Vinny had the thing there.
Yeah, there you go. See, I think there's a reason one's going at the top of the first round, the other one's going at the bottom of the first round. And probably should have went in the second round.
Yeah. All right. I just wanted to clear some thoughts up, and I appreciate the guys in the chat reminding me that Misa is a couple years younger than Frost in the same season in the OHL. So that matters, of course. All right. Yeah, just interesting thought there. Okay. So yeah, there will be guys in the top 5 for the Flyers and guys that play the center position.
I don't know where I heard it, but I heard the Flyers were very much in on Misa before, coming into this season. And the fact that he's playing out of his mind, it's like he was looking like he was going to be a 4, 5, 6 range, and now he's clearly 2 or 3, and it's a damn shame. If they somehow got the number 2 pick and they took Misa, I would jump for joy. I wouldn't think they overdrafted him or anything like that. I would be if they got number 1 and they chose him over Schaefer, I'd be okay with that as well. It's one of those drafts, it's just, please. There's apparently not as much talent as we thought to last year. I would, if they could come away with a player like that, I could give a shit what they do with the rest of their picks.
Yeah, and then they have the ammunition to maybe move up. So if Misa's their guy, maybe that's what they're holding out for. I will also point out that Misa seems to have some Italian heritage in his background. So it's no surprise that that's who we should be aiming for.
Misa does rhyme with pizza.
There you go. Okay. I think we are coming to the end. Grant Shilley's been on fire with comments tonight. Grant, hopefully you catch us live more often. Frost has nightmares about Misa, and Chuck Norris has nightmares about Misa. Yeah.
That's saying something.
It is saying something. All right. Well, we are coming to the unfortunate end to our live show once a week. You can catch us here. We did it on a Tuesday this week. We try to get our live shows in whenever the Flyers don't play. They typically play Tuesdays, Thursdays. This week they play Monday, Wednesday. Actually, you know what? Let's get the schedule out. Since this is a Flyers podcast, I just figured the listeners really didn't want to be reminded when the Flyers play anymore. But let's get the schedule going here. I probably could have popped that up on the screen.
Well, I'll give you a little update. What a freaking shame, man. Penguins were up 2-0 going into the third. It is now 2-2. That sucks.
That does suck.
Predators are down 2-0. Ducks are down 2-1. They are playing the Stars. Blackhawks are winning. Not that we'll ever catch them, which means the Kraken's losing. That sucks. Oh, man, it's not looking good right now.
Nah. Somebody had a parlay. I think it was a Penguin Kraken parlay. I think Linden might have had that parlay. So
it's not looking good right now. Penguins forgot how to play hockey, and the Kraken are cracking all over the place.
Yep. All right. So the Flyers continue their 5-game road trip Thursday night against the Washington Capitals. That should be a fun one. Maybe we'll see Ovechkin break the record that night with an 8-goal game. We'll see the Dallas Stars Saturday afternoon, and the Chicago Blackhawks at 3 p.m. on Sunday. So things could get really bad to finish the rest of the road trip. They have 3 Stanley Cup contending teams, and then the Chicago Blackhawks, who are one of the few teams behind them in the standings. Flyers will finish out the month with 3 games at home against Montreal, Buffalo, who's also behind them, and Nashville, who's also behind them. So, look, if the Flyers go...
I think Cal Peterson should start all those games.
Sure, let's see what they got. Let's see what they have in Cal Peterson. If Flyers go 1-6 the rest of the month, I can tell you what I won't be doing, and that's bitching about Travis Konechny and Rocky Thompson. So why don't we end the show on that note, Jack? Where's the script here? Everybody, thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure to subscribe. Help us on our quest to 1,000 subscribers. We said in the beginning of the show, if we get 20 subscribers during our live show, we'll give away a couple hats. I haven't checked the numbers while we were live here. Let me just do that real quick before we wrap up. We should be at 852 in order to give away hats. And we're not. So we'll do this again next week.
Tall task.
It is a tall task. I have faith in our subs. So next week, if you have friends that like the Flyers and they're not listening to our show, let them know. Hey, I listen to HW Hockey. It's on YouTube once a week. Give us a like. Leave us a comment for us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. And set alerts so you're the first to know when we drop a new show. For all of our latest episodes, articles, and updates, head over to hwhockey.net. We'll be back. I have a video coming out for you guys tomorrow. Jack and I will be back next week for our weekly live show. Everybody have a good night. Remember to keep it high, keep it wide, and we'll see you next time on HW Hockey.
Yes.